Welcome back to my channel, everyone. It's been a while, but I am so excited to be here with Lauren Watt. Lauren I was just telling her she's a Jill of all trades. She does it all. She is the networking guru, the writer, the artist, and now I just learned video editor. But Lauren also is the sponsorship coordinator for the Diamonds Conference. And so as she's gotten to be part of our community, we've gotten to grow together, tackle some new projects together, and I've gotten to know her. And so she's just a really, really cool person. And so today we wanted to talk about navigating work and worth when you're chronically ill. And so, yeah, Lauren, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad to be here. Yeah.
I'm glad to
So
have you.
I am 24 years old and I'm from the Pittsburgh area. And I joined Diamonds last year as a sponsorship coordinator, and it's been a really great growing experience.
Glad to hear that. What are some of the highlights or even lowlights of that experience?
Yeah. Well, I joined first as a moderator for that conference last year, and it just seemed natural to apply to be part of the team because I enjoyed it. Um, Yeah, highlights I think are just that I have gotten to know some great Christian people who understand what it's like to have chronic illness and have been very encouraging to me, and great prayer partners, great friends. I think that's a definite highlight. Um, Low light, I guess, is not too much, but always there's new things to learn. And sometimes you're working with people who have chronic illness. It can be a little frustrating at times. It's like everybody's maybe trying to get something done, and it's just like, hey, we wish we had more energy. But we have a great team of people, and it always works out.
Yep, we're all in it together. I mean, you yourself also navigate all of this work stuff with a chronic illness as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you about my chronic illnesses. When I was 14, actually a few days before I turned 14, I was drinking a V8, and I was a very picky vegetable eater as a kid. I didn't really like vegetables. And so when I was just before I turned 14, my taste really started to mature, and I started to eat a lot of new foods. And so I was drinking a V8 for the second time in my life, and it didn't go well. I flushed, turned all red. I felt headachy, and my stomach felt unsettled. And I remember feeling so embarrassed because I was at a conference, and I walk into the ladies' bathroom, and my face is like beet red. And it looks like I must have had this terrible emotional breakdown, which I didn't. um, But a few days after that, something similar happened. A few days after that, it happened again, and it got worse. And eventually, I had to get an EpiPen because these reactions were getting to the point where my throat would tighten. I would sleep for a day and a half. My lips would be buzzing. And it took a while to get diagnosis, but I had mast cell activation syndrome. And I also got diagnoses of postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is basically where you get lightheaded when you stand up, and lots of other things too. And then I had tick-borne infections, and you could put a lot of labels on me if you wanted to for everything I had. So you could have said I had chronic pain, chronic fatigue syndrome, like lots of things that were happening. Yeah. So by God's grace, I'm a lot better now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for the most part, I don't consider myself to have those diagnoses anymore. Like I consider myself to basically be free of POTS. Um, I still consider myself to maybe have a little tiny bit something with mast cell activation syndrome every once in a while, but for the most part, I don't have any problems. Yeah, and then there's the
Great.
fatigue layer. The fatigue layer is the hardest one to like fully break through, but I am
Yeah.
so much better than I used to be. I used to be bedbound. I used to have so much fatigue that when I first heard diamonds, I couldn't even participate because it was just listening to somebody would have been too mentally exhausting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I had really bad mental fatigue and really bad physical fatigue.
Yeah. And now you're the one that keeps me going, like mentally, like figuring out all the things we need to. There's Lauren. I linked in the description of this video. I linked to your website, so I know Lauren shares a lot more of like her chronic in illness and beyond story on Substack. So that's like linked below. But yeah. Okay. What before all of that? what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah. So I don't remember my earliest answer to this. I remember one of my answers was I wanted to be an attorney because I liked arguing with my older brothers, to be quite honest. Um, and that kind of wore off after a little while. And I decided I wanted to be a librarian because I had a really good memory. And I grew up in a family where we didn't watch TV. So when I learned how to read, reading was what I did. And my dad would be talking about something. I'd be like, is on this book on this page number. And I would pull it up and I would read the little description of whatever we were talking about. So my family really thought that was cool. And like everyone's like, you should be a librarian. And that's what I wanted to do. I don't think I quite realized what librarians actually did. Like it's a lot of research. I just kind of was like, it's so fun to be in a library of books all day long and read. Um, which I do like research. I do like reading. I just, again, kid didn't fully comprehend everything.
Yeah, no, librarians are heroes, man. So that was the dream, and then health happened, and then some recovery, not all the way yet, but like some recovery. What do you do for work now?
Yeah. So Sarah, thank you, Sarah, is actually the one who gave me the idea for what I should do for work. I interviewed for Diamonds. I was like, I just want some experience. Plus, I really believe in your ministry. But to be honest, a big part of the reason I'm applying is I want experience and I just want to like network with people and see what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are too. And so I was like, well, some people who have applied for Diamonds and worked with us have gone on to be virtual assistants. I was like, oh, that's cool. So that's what I am now. I'm a virtual assistant and I help with administrative stuff and with marketing stuff. So things like managing PR and emails and doing some basic web updates and editing podcasts. And my client lets me do a lot of different cool things, but those are some of the biggest ones that I do for him.
Yeah, it's been so cool to see you just like, I mean, dive into diamonds and flourish. And I feel like what you're saying, like it's so because it's a ministry that we're finding our feet still. Like we're a couple years in, we've got some systems, but finding our feet still and exploring new things. And then also because people have chronic illnesses, like creativity is a high value there. And so, but with that, it's been so cool to see you and others like get to grow and go into the next things God has for you. And yeah, like it's just really cool to keep hearing updates of how it's going with your client.
And I think that's one of the strengths of Diamonds is that everyone has a chronic illness. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why part of why I applied because sometimes when you volunteer for something, people don't really understand that you have a chronic illness and they might place higher expectations on you than what you can realistically handle. But I knew that wasn't going to be an issue with Diamonds because it was the expectation. You are going to be sick. Sometimes deadlines are going to have to be moved around a little bit, or you're going to have to ask for help so you can meet the deadline.
Yeah. What does that look like? Or this is like not one of the questions I sent you, but what does that look like for like working outside of that now? Like how do you navigate, like that dynamic within like the regular workforce? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So when I was volunteering with Diamonds, to be honest, I was in a flare up, which was kind of frustrating. I was having some hormonal issues and was way more tired the months leading up to the conference. um, Fortunately, I'm out of that now, so I can be a little more flexible. Um, but yeah, it's prioritizing work. Sometimes you have to say no to every social event you're invited within a week because it's just too much. um, like having realistic expectations for what I can do and being willing to work on weekends so I can take a nap in the afternoon if I need it. Um, those have been important. And I think I was very upfront with my clients, like I do have a chronic illness and part of why I decided to be a VA, virtual assistant, is I wanted flexibility. And so I was like, I'm fine with having deadlines, but I just for the most part, I want to request that we can be a little flexible about when I actually do the work. So maybe the deadline is on Friday, but it's okay if I do the work at 10 p.m. at night, if that's when I feel good.
Yes, I relate to that. I work as a virtual assistant-ish for someone as well, and often he'll get messages from me at like 11 or midnight my time, which is like he's in the East Coast, so it's like 3 a.m., but it's like it works. It still gets done by the time it needs to. And I think that's something that helps me with work, well, like throughout all the ups and downs and of stuff of chronic illness is like I think of it in terms of like a week. This is what I need to do this week, not like this is what I must do today, because today might get derailed or, it might change. And inevitably those weeks also have to change, like what needs to be done within the month. But like getting to like, okay, like I'm good right now and like focus on that. And then when I'm not, focus on like taking care of myself or doing what I need to do. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. Thanks for sidetracking with me there. But
Yeah,
um
definitely. Good question.
how has God worked in your work story, especially the parts that didn't go according to plan?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I'm 24, and most people graduate high school when they're 18. That was not my story. I was very, very sick as a teenager, sometimes frighteningly so, and wasn't always sure if, to be honest, I was going to make it, and wasn't sure what my future would look like. And so I did not graduate high school until I was 23. So that was 1 year ago. And I kind of wondered, like, how is this all going to impact me, like graduating later in life? But I decided to trust God in that. And my parents have been very encouraging to me that it's less about what you have on paper and more about the experiences that you have, and the right people will value your experiences, even if you didn't take all those AP classes like your brothers did. um, and so for me, like I said, I volunteer at Diamonds, and I actually started out as a moderator. And so then I decided to volunteer with somebody who was looking for help teaching online. Um, and I was like, I have experience in taking Bible studies online, taking online classes, because I did do some online classes as I got better. I just have a lot of experience on the online world, and I've even moderated on YouTube. Um, so a person was doing some Zoom classes, and I gave him feedback and shamelessly threw out that I was a virtual assistant. And a few months later, I got an email that they wanted to hire me.
King Guru, guys.
So I
Like,
think that's how God has worked in it all, because I, that wasn't my childhood plan. My childhood plan was not to be a VA. My childhood plan was not to have chronic illness. And the person I work for, Dr. Warren, he really values me because of my chronic illness and because of my experience. And so I would just say the right client, the right employer will see what you've been through as a pro and not as a con.
oh, that's so
Because
good.
every week I'm emailing with people who write in asking for prayer about my wife has cancer, or my daughter was run over by a train, like really tragic things. And I would have been very uncomfortable in that environment if I hadn't experienced some of these things myself.
Yeah, I think that like you're talking about your brothers and stuff, like comparison has definitely been something that's really hard for me, like with education or with work or things like that. But but it's like God has got each of us coming from somewhere else, a different place and going a different place. Like he's got it's a good that we're not all the same, and those things can become a benefit, which for me has looked like getting to start this ministry, getting to write books, getting to do those kinds of things that I never would have done otherwise, or at least like certainly not on faith in God and chronic illness and like navigating that kind of stuff. So I'm glad. Thanks for yeah, that's really cool. What encouragement would you have for a chronic illness warrior struggling to find their purpose?
Yeah. So to be honest, this is something I still struggle with sometimes. Purpose and worth. But what I would say, first of all, is don't compare yourself to what other people have done. I have two older brothers, and both of them went to college completely on scholarship. One of them was on TV for a scholarship he won, And I kind of had these high expectations on myself that that's what it looked like for me too. Um, and so when I couldn't graduate at 18 and go to college, I struggled with some of that because I was comparing myself. Um, so your question is about finding purpose, right? Yeah, that was the question. So I was thinking about this beforehand, and in 2018, that was the worst year of my chronic illness. I was so sick that I couldn't do basic things like shave myself. Couldn't
There.
wash my own hair. I fortunately could walk to the bathroom, but it was really, really hard. I had to hold on to the walls the whole time, and my legs would really shake, and it would just like wipe me out. So I was like, "What's the purpose in all of this? I can't like minister to other people the way I want to." But I did have a phone in bed, and like, I found purpose sending someone an email. Like maybe they emailed me, but I could like write back and say that really encouraged me, and therefore like give them some encouragement that they encourage this really sick person. Um, or I could sign my name to a card that my parents wrote out. That was really frustrating to me because I used to write cards to people, and I remember for a few months I was so weak that I couldn't write cards, but I could still sign my name. And I remember coming across a quote, and I tried to find it online. It seems like there's a lot of variations of this quote, so you could attribute it to different people. But as long as you have a pulse, you have a purpose. And that really encouraged me. It's like, okay, I'm alive. There's some purpose in all of this, even if I can't see it. And I'm just going to trust God for that. Um, and I think as a society, we put a lot of value on what do you do? So often the first question is, what's your name? Second question is, what do you do? Or what grade are you in? And I didn't have an easy answer for either of those. Um, and I've had to learn that my value isn't just in what I do, my value is in Christ. And I think all the time about Mary and Martha and just spending time with Jesus.
Yes. My dad, oh, is it my dad? I feel like he got it from somewhere, but I was like, you're not a human doing, you're a human being. Like our worth
Yes.
is inherent because it comes from God creating us and who God made us to be, not what we can do for him. What
Yes.
we can do for him will change depending on the season of life and the things that we're going through or the capacity or physical ability or mental ability that we have. But like the worth that we have in him and the like purpose therefore that we have is like that doesn't change and that can't change. Even if like I relate to you, like there's a lot of time in my life where I couldn't produce or accomplish anything, but that was still time that I got to glorify God by laying in bed and enduring, like
Yes.
just getting through it.
Yeah. I just posted something to my Substack where I quote Spurgeon, and Spurgeon talks about the burning bush, and he talks about someone being in suffering for a long period of time and God sustaining them, and how being able to be sustained in suffering and not go into total hopelessness and still have a smile on your face or at least trust God is a greater miracle sometimes than healing is. And I came across that when I was really sick, and that just really encouraged me. It's like, okay, I can prove to the world that Christ is worth a lot to me because he is, and because I have a really serious health issue that's preventing me from doing a lot of things that the world loves and thinks I should be chasing after.
Ah, well, I feel like that's a good place to end. But we could talk so much more about this. And we do, I check out Lauren's Substack linked below, and then also the Diamonds Conference website. We do things like this interview, but like way longer and bigger through
Yeah.
conferences. And we have one coming. Stay tuned for more
Yeah.
information on that. But we are also looking for more volunteers, and so applications for that are going to open on May 26th. So we're looking for people who who want to volunteer, who are passionate about serving the chronically ill, and who want to explore in a safe space where there's grace and there's flexibility and there's accommodation and just like yeah, so much understanding for walking through chronic illness and like learning and growing skills in that context. So we would love to, you can also like just make sure you're signed up for the Diamonds email list or come back to this video on the 26th and it will be below. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, Lauren.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. Thanks for being a big encouragement to me.
You too. You too.